For decades now, Radiohead has produced some of the most intriguing music, particularly for musicians. A lot of jazz musicians like Brad Mehldau have covered a lot of Radiohead songs. There's a really good reason for that. Now, while a lot of the things that I think most people are familiar with come from some of the early albums, in fact, we've talked here about some of my favorite Radiohead, which is actually more of a recent discovery for me, as hard as that is to believe. But the most recent Radiohead discovery that I've had is actually from an album from 2016. It is one of the most stunning things I have ever heard. Give this a listen. Okay, that intro is just unreal. That's the intro, and I'm letting it ring because I want you to hear all the layering going on in there. Let me just play that first line, and I'm just going to hold the pedal down, and we're going to listen to all the notes that are included in this line. You're going to hear them ring. Listen to that. If we condense all of those notes down into a single scale, we end up with this. That's it. And if you know your scales, you'll know that this is the C natural minor scale. If we just take that sound and we divide it all up and we start playing outlines, we can very quickly wind up at this exact line. We're kind of dividing it up into thirds here. You can kind of see how we're... Right? Now here's what's cool about this intro, okay? We haven't even gotten into the song yet, but I just want to talk about this intro because it is a really incredible demonstration of something that's actually going to be used throughout the song, and that is the world of common tones. Common tones are essentially any note inside of a chord that when we change the chord, that note is still there, right? Now there's a key difference. Whenever we change the chord underneath and we keep a common tone that is shared between them, typically what happens is that common tone changes its function. Now when we talk about function, we essentially mean what does this note do inside of this chord, right? Well, if we're playing C minor, the E flat is the minor third. It's what actually makes this chord minor, right? Without it, there's nothing that would tell us that this chord is minor. If we just took it out, well, now we don't know if it's major or if it would be minor because there's no information telling us that. Okay, so it's a very important note in a C minor chord. All right, but we can move that around. Now let's go to another chord. Here's an A flat major chord. That E flat is absolutely inside of A flat major, but it's no longer the third. Now it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's the fifth of A flat. What about if we move it again, and now we have an F minor chord? Now that E flat is something different. It is the 1, 2, flat 3, flat 4, 5, 6, flat 7. It's It's the dominant 7th or the flat 7th in an F minor chord. Right? So we've just played 3 different chords, and that same exact E flat is in all of them, but it does something different to the chord. This is really important because watch. What happens if we expand outside of that E flat and just say, well, what about every single note that we just played in that opening line? Now we're moving to an F minor chord. We already said that the E flat works for both, but here's the cool thing. This is what's so cool about modes, okay? Modes are basically, if you take a major scale, start it from different points within that scale, you get a whole different scale, and those are the modes of the major scale. We'll go over that at some point. I've gone over that before, and maybe we'll talk about it a lot more in the future. But for lack of not going into an entirely different video right now, let's just talk about what happens to this scale when we start moving our chord around. And this is what I love so much about this intro, yes, but this whole song. And I think it's one of the things that makes it so incredibly beautiful because it serves as the perfect platform on which Johnny Greenwood could layer all these instruments and all these strings and synthesizers together and just make this absolutely unbelievably beautiful intro and the entire song. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. You guys hear me talk all the time about like these different scales and all that stuff, and like it might seem like what I'm speaking a whole different language. I'm actually not, and it's one of the reasons why I am really excited to announce the biggest project that I've ever put together. It is the Better Piano System. You guys, if you've never played the piano before, or if you've just started out and you're kind of looking for some direction, this is it. I have compiled all of the things that I've been working on, in addition to all the conversations I've had with many of you over the last few years, to put together a massive program that can help you learn how to do a lot of the stuff that I do here on the channel. And you might notice I don't take sponsors on this channel. I never really talk about anything. And a lot of that's because if I do talk about stuff, I want it to be A, something that I've built for you, and B, something that I can promote that's actually useful. Because I don't take sponsors, making educational products for you is the way that I continue to do this. So your support is so greatly appreciated. And right now, actually, as I put this thing together and put it out, I'm offering it to you at what's gonna be like a 75% discount. It's a pre-sale right now. Now, pre-sale does not mean it's not packed full of content, because what's in there now is hours of content, tons of exercises, tons of stuff to get you started. In fact, I highly doubt you'll be able to get through all of it before the rest of it comes out, but I have so much stuff that is just going to continue to be added to it. So when you buy the pre-sale right now, you're essentially going to get access to everything that's in there, which is already tons of stuff. It's over 100 videos. And then all of the rest of the content, as it gets added, it's just automatically going to be updated. So if that's something that interests you, it would mean the world if you would check out that link in the description down below. Thank you so much. Let's jump back into this. So we have this scale, okay? We have these notes, but here's the trick. We can move. It doesn't have to start on C, right? All we're dealing with is just like a C, a D, an E flat, an F, a G, an A flat, a B flat, and then the C is repeated, right? But we can start that anywhere. That's on B flat, that's on A flat, that's on G, that's on F, that's on E flat, and that's on D, and then we would arrive back at C. Same exact bank of notes. We're just starting from a different point, okay? Now, you'll notice something really interesting happening. When we move to this F minor, the second chord, we have this beautiful line. Absolutely gorgeous, but when you break down all the notes that we're using, we wind up with that exact same note bank as the C natural minor scale, only now we're starting it on F. When we started on F, remember what we said about common tones. The notes that are shared from chord to chord, they are common, however they change their function. Well, so does the same can be said if all of the notes are shared. We just make a new scale, right? C natural minor. Anybody know? Put it in the comments. What is this? It's an F scale of some kind. We know it's minor because it has a flat 3, but wait, it also has a regular 4, natural 5, oh, interesting, natural 6, flat 7. So the only alterations from major there's F major. It's just we've made the 3rd flat and the 7th flat. That's it. So flat 3, flat 7, if you know, is the Dorian mode, okay? That is F Dorian, okay? So we went from same exact, this is what's so cool about this, same exact notes, turn this from a C natural minor scale into an F Dorian scale. What do you think we're gonna do next after we play those lines over F minor? Watch this. Okay, we went to A flat, okay? But here's the thing. There's F Dorian, there's C natural minor. We take this exact same bank of notes, and now we start it on A flat. We get this. It's almost an A flat major scale. However, we've made one important change. Right there. Normally in the major scale, we'd have a D flat, but here we've made that sharp, turned it into a D natural, and that gives us A flat Lydian, yet another Greek mode, right? So we have 3 chords. We have a C minor, and it just uses that scale. We have an F minor, it just uses that scale, same exact notes. And now we have an A flat major, and it just uses that scale, exactly the same notes. Everything so far, we have not changed a single note. We've simply moved around our root, created a different chord, but because they're all common tones, we're using the same scale. But the function is different on every chord. Do you see how crazy this is? And it's crazy not in the sense that it's complex. It's actually crazy because it's so simple. And that's what makes it so amazing. And so when you have things like this, where you're moving from chord to chord, and you're using the exact same notes, what does that allow you to do? It allows you to use that note bank. Remember, we're only dealing with an A flat, a B flat, an E flat, and the rest are white keys. So we can theoretically look at this as being devoid of a root. Like, where's the root? I don't know. That's what's beautiful about it, is because it could be A flat, could be F, or it could be C. All the exact same note banks. So what it allows you to do is, now if you're going to start layering all kinds of other things into it, like strings, for example, you have this note bank to work with, right? Well, what can we do with that note bank? We can create triads out of that note bank, right? We can create fourths out of that note bank. Right? We can do all kinds of things. So as we layer stuff, we get these these beautiful sounds. And we can make all kinds of different, and all we're doing is changing the root. Like, watch this. There's so much opportunity because we're using the same notes. Now, the only thing we add to this is the next thing we're actually doing. Now we decided to call this like a C minor over a B flat. Now, there's a few different ways you could look at it, and there's a few different ways that I think would be perfectly correct to call this thing. But it's not a B flat major chord, right? And I think that's an important distinction. But the funny part is that if we take that exact same note bank again, and we put it over a B flat, we get another mode of the major scale, and it's Mixolydian. These are all just modes. They're all modes of the major scale. What major scale, you might ask? That's an interesting question, and it's actually something that we don't hear until much later in the song, and the answer is E flat. The notes of E flat are as follows: E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, C, D, E flat. That is a major scale in the key of E flat. So all we're doing is we're taking that exact scale, we're moving. We're just moving the bass note around. And it changes the chord and it changes the scale, but it doesn't change the notes. They just serve a different function now. How cool is that? I don't know. I just think that's the coolest thing ever. And we get this incredibly beautiful intro to this song from it. Before finally landing back on C minor as we get into the song itself.
It's me. I just got off the train.
We're going to sit on that C minor for a while.
Faces are concrete gray.
And Tom York is going to do something really interesting here.
Buy another ticket. Panic is coming on strong, so call me.
Ah, the strings are so good.
No great German message coming in on the oh so small glassy-eyed light of day. Glassy.
Listen to that string harmony up there. Woo! Oh, it's so good. Okay, what is the interesting thing that Tom York is doing? What he's doing is the same thing that we've just been talking about, only with the melody and not necessarily with all this accompaniment stuff, right? Changing the harmony, but we're not changing anything about the notes that we're using over top of it. And why can we do that? Because they're all common tones as we're moving the chord around, because we're sticking with literally the same bank of notes. This is so brilliant because not only is it in use for the sake of all the accompaniment, the beautiful string layering, but it's also in use for the melody. And we don't even really change until a little later.
Path trails off and heads down
Ah!
to the dry brook. I don't know.
Oh. That whole section is unbelievably beautiful. This is the first time we've left that space. Now, we can no longer use the exact same scale, really just because of that note, to be honest. I mean, a lot of it still works. This is an interesting chord because it doesn't feel like an E flat 7, but it kind of is, just because we have that note in there. But it's an interesting chord. I'm not 100% sure what to call it. And then we land on that D flat major. And the whole thing builds and builds and builds until we get this. Oh. B major. Releasing into C minor. Talk about a resolution. B major. Up a half step. Oh yeah. Oh. We do end up getting the E flat, which, as we talked about, is kind of the whole sound that we've been using this whole time. We get it for a moment before going back to A flat major. I gotta cut this video because it's gonna be way too long. Thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you for your support. We will see you in the next one.